Hello, my fellow webheads. It is your friendly neighborhood Jerry Rasco, and I am here with you today so that we can look through The Amazing Spider-Man number 48 together. So, I'm very excited to bring this issue to you. I think this is one that, unless you're a real Spidey enthusiast, you may have forgotten. I think this little bit may have been lost in the history of time. And you'll see when we get there as to why. But I'm very excited about it. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in this book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to share it with you. I mean, I got my Spidey sweatshirt on. I got my list of notes. I promise you guys, I do all my homework ready to roll, and this one has got a lot of really good stuff in it. So, that being said, let's head over to the comic and let's check it out together. So here we have the cover to The Amazing Spider-Man number 48, featuring the return of the Vulture. Super cool. As always, I want to cover all the main stuff that I do in the beginning of every video. First, I have to thank everybody that subscribes to the channel. Thank you so much for following me and following along with this journey as we look back at the Amazing Spider-Man issues together. This is truly a labor of love. I've done it because I felt like there was a lot of Spider-Man history. Like this issue is a great example. We'll see that maybe people don't know, casual fans don't know. There's also the history of the art that, you know, when you talk to people, I'm obviously very active, very interested on the internet. I follow a lot of art-based social media people, and you'll see things like list your Mount Rushmore of Spider-Man artists. And you'll see a lot of people will say things like Todd McFarlane, maybe John Romita Jr., stuff like that. But only the OGs, the old heads like me, you know, we might go back and pull out names like, hey, what about Keith Pollard? What about Ross Andrew? You know, what about... And so these are artists that we haven't seen yet in this series, but we will down the line. And these are Spider-Man artists who did great stuff. So my long-term goal for this channel is to expose everybody to these awesome artists, these awesome stories, so that maybe something that you're not familiar with, you can become familiar with. So thank you again to everybody. I couldn't do it without you. So if you're here, please take 1 minute and just hit the thumbs up button. That helps me a lot. If you like the content and what we're doing, think about subscribing to the channel. Last week we did a special live stream issue. I have been talking to a few different people. I'm hoping to get other people to join me on some live stream shows as we do it. I think those are a lot of fun as well. And if you're a subscriber, we'd love you to not only view, but participate. I'd love to have you in the chat and hear what you think about these issues as well. So all that, thank you so much. Let's get into the book. As always, this is a PDF copy of The Amazing Spider-Man that was scanned in full from the original book in 2004 by Marvel, sold on CD-ROM. And so I have those CD-ROMs. I've downloaded them all onto my computer, and here we go. So you will see all the original ads. You can see the weathering of the paper, all that kind of stuff. If there's a misprint, we'll see it. None of this is digitally corrected. The cover is awesome. I really like it. It's very clear that the Vulture is back. I love the big figure of the Vulture. I love this ink job by John Romita of the very dark, bold lines as the Vulture is closer to us. Spidey also has some dark lines. And then the rest of the city is inked in a much thinner, lighter hand that pushes it into the distance away from us. And that is standard, a standard methodology of depicting depth in space. So in real life, when you are standing somewhere and you look at something, so right in front of your face, you look at your hand, is clearly defined. You can see all the colors, you see the swirls, you see the wrinkles, you see everything in your hand. Somebody who's holding their hand up a mile away, you might be able to see the person, but you're not going to see those details. And the air, the atmosphere between you and that person is going to diminish how clearly you can see them, and it will even change the color that you see. So in comics, this is a way for us to show depth and space, and that is thinner lines in the background, bolder, stronger lines in the foreground. Great cover. This is the kind of thing where I think if you're a fan of this series so far, we know the Vulture has been around a few times. We're going to open up this book and see what's happening. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And we jump into a very cool splash page. Spidey is kind of telling us what's going on. There's a very brief recap about the last issue and Kraven the Hunter being out on the prowl. And so Spidey's looking for him. And then he's talking about this weather. So the weather plays a factor. Now, this is something that you do not see often in comics, is snow. There's a couple of reasons why. One, I think your comics obviously don't age in real time. Meaning, like, I think if we look at the indicia, the information down here, this publication date is May of 1967. So obviously it wasn't snowing in May. This would have been done several months, or I guess at least several weeks, maybe a month before. So I don't think it was drawn necessarily in the middle of winter. So it's hard to keep up with that in terms of, on your regular monthly schedule of a comic. The other part has to do with the coloring. And we have to think about back how this comic was being colored at the time in 1967. Now, today, with computer, pretty easy. I can go and I have a tablet that I can take Photoshop and I can do a big fill in the entire background with the sky color. And then I can go in with my stylus and I can color all of the snowflakes white and it will print like that. Printing back then is very different. And I have an image that I'm going to show you here to give you sort of an example as I explain very briefly, because I understand it, but I'm not an expert in it, the old printing process. So we're going to cut to it right here. So this is the example. So what they used to do is they would take and break each color down. So you're only printing in 4 colors: cyan, magenta, yellow, cyan, CMYK, and black. Cyan, magenta, yellow, no, blue, right? So, no, the cyan is blue. Sorry. Cyan, magenta, yellow, black. That's it. And so you have to use combinations and percentages to get the right color. So example, like a green would be a combination of a certain percentage of cyan, blue, and a certain percentage of yellow to make green. And you would put down a certain percentage of yellow dots, then you would come back over the top and print a certain number of cyan dots. And our eye mixes those two together to make the green. White is the white of the paper. And when you're doing this, you're doing it through acetate sheets that then get turned into engraving plates that block the color, right? So if I only want to print 50% cyan on this, sorry, I'm referring to the Spider-Man, but we're looking at the other picture. Sorry. But if there's a green area and I want to do 50% yellow and 50% cyan, I have to block 50% of the space so that when I pass over it with the cyan, it's only filling in 50% of the dots. Then I have to block all the cyan dots and fill in the other 50% of it with the yellow. And again, our eye will mix the color into green. But if I want it white, I have to have 0%, which means that has to be solid. And people used to cut these acetate shapes out by hand to either open up areas or block areas. So we're going to cut back to the Spider-Man page right here. So as you can imagine, trying to color the blue in the background without coloring in all of the white dots is really, really hard. And I think that's one of the big reasons why you wouldn't see a lot of snow in comics on a regular basis. I think it was just too hard to do. So we keep moving. Good stuff. What did I say here? So not much on page 2. Spidey's swinging around, and he swings by the prison and we find in the prison there's a prisoner who was injured and is on his deathbed, and it turns out it is the Vulture. And I really like the fact that I don't think anybody here refers to him by his real name. Everybody just refers to him as the Vulture, which I think is pretty interesting. If I remember correctly, it's Toombs. Adrian Toombs, I think, is his real name. Everybody just refers to him as the Vulture. And I like the fact that in this image here of him on his deathbed, John Romita really sticks to the Steve Ditko quirks that he built into the visual interpretation of the Vulture. The big nose, these giant eyebrows, this kind of weird overbite that Steve Ditko drew in, and like no chin. He basically has just this sort of sunken, very little chin. That's a great job. Like, he could have, really revised it, but he stuck with these little quirks, which I think is really terrific. So Vulture's dying, and he's going to pass on the mantle of the Vulture to his cellmate, this guy named Blackie Drago. And you see Blackie's face here for the first time, and he has a very vulture-y looking, I guess, face as well, with a real prominent nose, aka beak, very pointy. Again, also really big eyebrows. So he's going to fit right into that motif of that Vulture visage. And of course, Blackie is the one that caused the accident that has the Vulture on his deathbed, and he lets him know right before he walks out. And nice montage here again. Great. Look at this giant Adam's apple, because he's just this scrawny, guy, old man with this weird, kind of face. Really, really nice work there. And a really nice montage of, his last moments thinking about himself beating up Spider-Man. Terrific stuff there. Again, great to stick with the original character design, but we see we're moving on to a Vulture who is a younger man, a more physical man. Because I think it's really funny, right? So I think the idea probably would have stemmed from some fans saying Spider-Man shouldn't have any problem with the Vulture because he's old. He's like this really old guy. He's skinny and scrawny. Yeah, the suit gives him some strength and abilities, but Spidey, one punch and this guy should be, crumpled into a pile on the ground. So in a reaction to that, they say, okay, well, let's move on to a younger, stronger Vulture. We'll see how that lasts, and we'll see what the fan reaction is then to the replacement Vulture. So the new guy, he breaks out of prison and drives off, and this is a terrific, we call it a worm's eye view. So again, we've talked about this a lot in this series, where the imagery on the page is very much like the same language as camera angles for television and movies. And this is what you would call a worm's eye view. The camera is literally on the ground looking at this car and tire coming right at us. So you have this wonderful vision of the size, the speed, the power of the car coming at you. But then you also, because you're looking up, you can see the background of the prison behind him and where he's coming from. If you were looking down, it wouldn't have the same sense of approach, right? It's not this looming car. You would just, like here, up above, he zips out of the gate. The car itself doesn't look like anything special or powerful, but it appears much more here because we are down on that ground. We're very vulnerable. It's coming right at us. So that's a great way to show that. And I really, really like that panel. That cops chase him. Blackie finds the costume where the Vulture told him he had stashed it, and very quickly disappears. I noted the use of the vertical panel. So we're still in a grid, meaning things are happening fast. So not to forget, we used to talk about this all the time. grid a grid composition. All your panels are the same size or very close to the same size, all in nice orderly rows. That indicates speed of the moments. Things are happening boom, 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 very fast. And that's exactly what's happening here. He's on the run. The cops are on his tail. He's got to hurry up and get this suit on. So there's speed, anxiety. The cops find him just as he's taking off. So there's just seconds between him putting on the costume and his first couple flaps as he flaps into the air, and then struggling, and then finally kind of getting the hang of it and getting away. So the grid is great in terms of the pacing of the story, but then to use large vertical panels is terrific because you have these big wings. So it's really nice to use that space, and John Romita does it great throughout the whole issue here of giving the Vulture space on the page to literally spread the wings, to become sort of, to use that majestic visual notion of these big, wide, powerful wings. So really nice use of page design to help emphasize the attribute of your character. So really nice stuff there. A couple things here just from a story perspective. Gwen Stacy, and they make a point to note, she has changed her hairstyle to be more like Mary Jane, which Harry points out. So the Mary Jane Gwen Stacy rivalry is really heating up. Personally, I've always been a fan of the Gwen Stacy hairband. I think that's an amazing look. She will go back to it, but I think it's funny that this rivalry is heating up. Peter is sick, so you also have to throw in a handicap for Spider-Man. So he's fighting a new Vulture, a younger, stronger man, but we've got a handicap Spidey's. And if you think about it, even just recent episodes that we've talked about, he has a sprained shoulder. Now he's got a cold. Aunt May is sick, so he's not focused on what he's doing. There's always something that sort of handicaps Spidey to put him in a position, in a weaker position than the villain. This is classic hero storytelling 101. If you're, and this is probably why, even though Superman may be the most iconic or recognizable superhero around the world, Superman is often described as difficult to write, or not always everybody's favorite hero. And the reason is Superman is almost never at a loss. He is never underpowered compared to his villains. He's never at a disadvantage because he has so many superpowers. He's so powerful. When you have a hero and you put them at a disadvantage of any kind, so in this case, Peter's getting a cold, so he's feverish, or the flu, he's feeling weak, dizzy, etc. Now you put him at a disadvantage, so when and if he overcomes the villain, it's an even bigger it's a bigger victory for the hero. If your hero can literally juggle planets in his hands, it's not a big deal to take out a guy in a wingsuit. So that's the beauty of Spider-Man. That's one of the things that they've kept consistent throughout the history of this character, is he's always, or very often, at a slight disadvantage. Last thing to point out here, down in the corner, his science instructor, his science professor tells him, hey man, you're sick, you don't look good, you should go home. That professor is, he calls him Mr. Warren, but is Professor Warren. If you know, you know. First appearance of Professor Warren. Big one again. If you know, you know. So again, Peter hears all the news. He hears J. Jonah, of course, ripping him apart. He hears about the Vulture breaking out, and he's not sure what to do because he feels so ill. Blackie here is making some adjustments to the costume, so he adds a helmet, which is I think is a perfect complement to the costume. I mean, I think the bald head of the original Vulture makes sense, right? If you've ever seen a Vulture, they have no feathers on the top of their head. That's fine. But in terms of this being a new look for a new guy, I think the helmet makes perfect sense. And again, using large panels to show the Vulture, again, pun intended, spreading his wings, learning his abilities, getting ready to go on a crime spree. Great use of panel sizes, composition, the whole 9 yards. One more thing I'm going to talk about here, we're going to break into this, is this vision of the city, this depiction of the city. So this is an excellent drawing of these buildings in perspective, in 3-point perspective. So perspective is really important for any artist when you're trying to draw realistic things, whether that be buildings, cars, furniture, even putting people into space so that they are oriented correctly. Perspective is an important thing to learn. And so throughout this issue, John Romita does an amazing job. I'll point out different things as we go, but of using perspective to show you different angles of the city, and it helps emphasize the height. Like when you see this building and you see how many windows there are between the top and the street, and then he's up above all that, that really gives you a great sense of height. It feels like you're up high. It's, even though it's very simple, it's just little squares of yellow. So the building isn't drawn with every brick, every detail, every nook and cranny, but it still feels real because you can feel that, and you can see pictures. We've seen photos from planes, people, or if you're up on a rooftop and you look down, this is what it looks like. This is just an interpretation of what it looks like. So great stuff. I will say maybe, so there's twofold. One is the snow and the cold weather is what leads Spidey to being sick. So that's one reason you have it in the issue. The other one is there's a lot of rooftops and stuff. And if your everything is covered in a nice layer of snow in the top, you don't have to draw as much. You don't have to draw all the edges of all the buildings, all the equipment that's up there, the pipes, the AC units, or the heating. You draw a little bit, the water tower, a little, access area there, maybe a chimney top there. The ledge here, you don't have to draw as much of the ledge because it's covered in snow. That's a smart thing. That might help you get through the issue a little faster too. So that makes some sense. Spidey decides he was going to bail out, maybe see if Daredevil could help him out. And he decides, no, if I can't, the Vulture's my guy. He's my fight. If I can't do it, I can't quit. If a little cold's going to put me out of action, I don't deserve to be a hero. So he takes off into the elements looking for the Vulture. It's a nice swinging shot, very classic Spidey swinging pose. I like this one of him leaping out the window, arm outstretched. Again, very nice heroic pose. I feel like by now John Romita has really excelled at capturing the way Spidey moves. That was something that I think he struggled with in his early issues of the book, but he's fully embraced at this point, and Spidey is moving like Spidey, which is terrific. The next page, this is a great two panels here, panel 3 and panel 4 down at the bottom of the page. We're going to zoom into these because they are awesome. Oh yeah. And we'll go into more perspective right here. So this, the Vulture with his victim that he's trying to rob on top of the George Washington Bridge, that is amazing. That is great perspective. And again, 3-point perspective. Simple 3-point perspective, but it absolutely works. You feel the height, you feel the space and depth of how far below, especially you have like this little boat down below, which is even under the bridge. That's an excellent touch. And then Spidey here hanging on the wall in the foreground, we have the city trailing out in front of him, also still in a 3-point perspective. format, doing a great job. This one, it may not be full 3-point. This may be more like, honestly, it kind of looks like 1 point down the center. But I'm going to get into that. So I am going to put in a link here. We're not going to watch the whole video, but I'm going to put in a link to a video that I think does a great job of showing how perspective works. Sort of 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, simple perspective techniques that any artist can use at any level, whether you're beginner, intermediate, or advanced, or even professional artist. This again, I've done this a couple episodes ago. I linked you to Andy Smith's YouTube channel. I'm going to link you to another one of his videos, and this one is about perspective, and he goes through it and shows you how it's done. Andy's a artist who has worked at just about every big publisher at one time or another. He's done DC work, he's done Marvel work, he's done work at CrossGen, and now he is doing his own self-published work. Highly recommend you check it out, both his production, what he's working on today, but check out his YouTube channel. He does an amazing job of breaking down some artistic techniques that we're talking about right here. So we're gonna put that link here in the video. Check it out, and you too can become a master of perspective just like John Romita. This shot is awesome. Spidey in the foreground, nice and bold, with the city and the bridge trailing out in the distance. That is awesome. What a great framing piece to have Spidey there and give enough space to show how far away the bridge is. That is phenomenal. This is an incredible piece, an incredible image. Absolutely love it. Great anatomy on Spidey, posture, body position, the way the road bends out to the bridge. This is obviously a guy who knows this area. He is familiar. He lives here. He knows what this bridge looks like, what the ramps look like, how it merges together. There's a tunnel under. Like, this looks phenomenal. And then Spidey attacks to try to save, I guess it's like a banker or somebody who's got, I think he has like bonds, like savings bonds or something like that in the briefcase. So now the two are going to fight. Spidey saves the guy. This is very nice choreography on these two pages. I've talked about this a lot in the past, where when I'm watching this, a fast fight scene where things are happening between two characters, a protagonist and an antagonist, I want to see continuity between the motions. So Spidey lowers the guy, sticks to the bridge, and then the Vulture swings in. So Spidey's hand, his right hand is helping to adhere him to the bridge. The Vulture comes from his left to his right, so he uses his right hand to web his legs, which means he has to let go, which is exactly what happens. He's let go of the bridge. He's starting to let go with his feet as well, so that the Vulture can pull him away, and which again is a pretty classic technique when Spidey fights the Vulture. The Vulture swings around, and again, all this motion is kind of happening in the right direction. Things are following, for the most part here, kind of the extreme of the 180 rule. I'm very comfortable with what's happening. Spidey swings around and he hits the cables. And again, because he's weak, because he's handicapped with his cold, he can't react fast enough to save himself. So he hits it pretty hard, and now he's stunned. These are awesome. I love, again, this body posture. Great inking. Again, talk about it when things are close to you. You see that bold line, you see that bold outline. So the closer something is, so the closest object here is this foot, it really needs to be strong and bold in terms of the contour line to help separate it, because it's the same color, the bottom of the foot from this shin going up. And so terrific stuff. The only thing I would say that I wish was a little different, I've mentioned this before. In some areas it works great. Here, for example, John uses these motion lines to show where everybody is flying to and from, and to accentuate the motion, which is great, but it blocks out anything behind them. And when you have a image like this where Spidey's hitting the cables, there's just the littlest hint of the cables behind him. So you have this big motion, this big energy attack, not attack, but energy of him striking stuff. So there's very little of the cables behind him. Now we see in the next image, he's stuck to the cables, but he's also right next to a girder. So unless you read, again, you have to read. I mean, comics is reading and just viewing, but I'm only talking about the visual perspective. So if I'm telling a story, I have to do it without words and be clear in what's happening. So did Spidey hit the girder or did he hit the cables? You know how you fix that? By showing the cables. Show, don't tell. But either way, I really like both of these a lot. I like how his foot is sticking to the cable there, but it's thin, so you still see the outline of the foot around, like his, kind of wrapping around. I think that's really, really good. I really do like both of these images. And then, again, really unique, right? So we've seen a bunch of fights of the Vulture and Spider-Man. Vulture's trying to punch, or Spidey's trying to web him up, whatever. Well, the Vulture flies with his hands. So instead of using his hands and crippling himself and not being able to fly, he uses his legs. That's a really creative idea. I think that was really, really neat. So he, kind of locks Spidey almost in a leg lock, so that he can, carry him out in the air and just drop him over nothing and kill him. I mean, I think that's a great, great idea. And why didn't we see that earlier? That's terrific. Mary Jane, Mrs. Watson, and Aunt May come to see Peter. They've heard he's sick, but of course he's not home. So they go, it can't be too bad. Now, talking heads, nothing special here. It's just an excuse for, I guess, just to remember, hey, there's other people in Peter's life too. But what I liked was this third panel. So when you have talking heads, there's a couple ways that you can do things. You can have people sort of talking over their shoulder. You can have characters just their backs facing you, which isn't always the best thing to do unless it's extremely clear who they are, either through the dialogue or you've established first. So we've established what Aunt May is wearing. So when you see her from behind, it's clear this is Aunt May. But this is a nice way of doing it. Aunt May is saying something, then Mary Jane is adding on and talking to Harry, and Harry's responding. So you have three figures in a row, none of which are facing the exact same direction. Aunt May's turned a little, Mary Jane's pretty much straight on, Harry is profile. This is a nice way to have three talking heads in one panel and get it done without having to just constantly show the backs of characters. So that's really nice. And something just to take note of, again, if you're an aspiring comic book artist and you're struggling, like, not everybody in the world is always, you're either going to draw everybody profile because everybody's talking to each other, or you have to find ways where now one person is back is always to the viewer. This is a great solution to that problem. And then Spidey plays Possum just to kind of rest up for a minute and get into a position where he can, instead of being dropped, there's a flagpole for him to come to. He strikes out at the Vulture to try to get him to his legs to release him, which he does. And again, this is really great choreography. One more time, I really like it. You have he's dropped in the air to the flagpole. He uses the momentum of the flagpole to spring to kick the Vulture and then spring away, again, all sort of in the same motion direction. Everything's great. And then I really like this where the Vulture uses a wing to sort of chop the snow out from under Spidey to disrupt his footing so that he falls. And of course, if you're near a building, even sick and half conscious, Spidey's natural reactions are going to save him. He sticks to the building. This right here, panels 2, 3, 4. Again, we'll zoom in. This is awesome stuff. you have a great classic Spidey pose of him adhering to a wall. You have seen this same pose in movies, animation, merchandise, you name it. Great Spidey pose of him clinging to a wall. And then as we zoom in, just being handled better and better. The line work is terrific. We're seeing less, right? Because as his back is arching, we're coming in straight to that face. We're not seeing the arms out in front. Things are being foreshortened. But terrific. And we get this great zoom in of him, and he's not sure what's going to happen because the cold is, or the flu is too much. He's going to pass out. He can't do it. And he's realizing it here in this panel. But awesome stuff. Great classic Spidey depictions, images, drawings. Awesome stuff. He's hit one more time. Good kick there. And this is a really nice pose that mixes a combination of he's probably passed out before he gets kicked. So the body is limp, but the body is still reacting to the energy of the kick. So his body is twisted. It's falling in a backwards angle away from the kick. Excellent stuff there. Terrific combination of limp body plus relation to force applied. That's how I described it in my notes. Awesome stuff. And he falls down to a snow-covered rooftop. The Vulture leaves. And that's it. To be continued. ? Cliffhanger. Now, up until this point, we haven't had a super ton of cliffhangers. Most, just percentage-wise, most of the issues we've looked at have a beginning, middle, and end. Things get wrapped up. Or it's a beginning, a middle, there's sort of a resolution, but maybe the criminal gets away and Spidey's going, okay, what am I going to do now? And now it just continues the story. This one is a true cliffhanger and much more in line with what we see in comics today. This is a perfect way to end an issue to ensure that the people who read this issue are looking at that newsstand. When does the next Spider-Man come out? I got to know what happens. If the last panel is him slowly rising to his feet, dazed, but realizing he's been beat by the Vulture, okay, well, we know in the next issue, Spidey's going to get up and go after him. Now, I would assume, unless they're going to cancel the title, Spidey will get up and go after the Vulture again, but it's left to chance. And I think this is a terrific example, perfect example of a cliffhanger ending. And then we get to the end of the book. So we're going to cut back over to the desk. We're going to sum things up here and wrap up our video. So that is The Amazing Spider-Man number 48. I think this is a terrific issue. Obviously, I mean, I had really great things to say about it. Very few criticisms or areas where I thought could have been done differently or better. I think overall, the entire flow works great. It's not overwritten. It reads quickly and smooth. There's not tons and tons of background information we need to fill in. We get the new Vulture. He's got a success against Spidey. We have just enough of what's going on in his life with that little glimpse of Gwen Stacy, Aunt May worrying about his health a little bit, Mary Jane and Harry hanging out. That's all we need. And the rest is terrific action, great, really great depictions of New York City. From a technical standpoint, all that perspective work is phenomenal. So for me, I'm going to give it a rating out of 10. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5. I really like it. I think it's great. I hope that the next issue, following this cliffhanger, lives up to the hype, because it's got a lot to live up to based on this issue. So that's my take on Amazing Spider-Man 48. Let me know in the comments what you think. Did you have this issue? Did you, when you first read it, were you really worried about Spidey? What did you think of the new Vulture? Was this a character that was going to hang around? He doesn't hang around. Spoilers. But at the time, what did you think? Or, what was your mindset? Let me know in the comments. I love to hear from you. Thank you so much. Think about giving this a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. If you learned something new, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel. I'm dropping these, try to drop these every Monday at 8 a.m. For a new episode. And of course, as you see, it's jam-packed with lots of educational information, links to places where you can learn more stuff like Andy Smith's tutorial on perspective. We talk about printing process and just the way to tell a story in a comic book. So hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you next week with even more Spider-Man. Thanks.